a very peaceful democracy.
Beginning in 1954, regular alert exercises were held in cities across the U.S. But now that both sides had the H-bomb, there was no place to hide.
The idea was, during the early years of the Eisenhower administration, that shelter was not going to work given the advances in technology and given the advent of the hydrogen bomb, that it was silly and sheer folly to expect that shelters could protect people from such powerful weapons.
Keep your radio tuned to this frequency. There is a traffic plan for the evacuation of the city. Do not.
So instead of duck and cover, the slogan was run like the wind.
All cars in the downtown area must follow the green lights. They will lead you out of the danger area by the quickest route.
Basically, Operation Alert was a war game. It was a hypothetical attack on a city, or as they referred to them, on a target area. They would decide how many bombs, what the size of those bombs were, what the size of the population would be that was killed, the size of the population that would go homeless.
There was concern running all through the Eisenhower administration about the panic effects, the breakdown of law and order that would occur, who would exercise any kind of control or support for the people. Those were some of the things that we would test out during these exercises.
When I finally got dealing with people at the White House level, what I discovered is it wasn't civil defense per se. What they wanted civil defense in order to make sure that the American people would not be too frightened. Not to save lives, but to make people believe that they can survive a nuclear war.
One of the reasons that people are beginning to protest against the whole civil defense apparatus is the recognition, especially after the hydrogen bomb, that this is pointless, that there is no way to imagine surviving individually or as a nation in the event of a nuclear holocaust with weapons of this magnitude.
In New York City, the protests began with isolated acts of civil disobedience.
The sirens were going. I looked around, and there's not a soul around. And civil defense guys come. And they said, you're going to have to take shelter. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. This is my park. I'm sitting here with my children. No.
The protests made headlines in the New York press. The following year, thousands of women brought their children to the same park to demonstrate against the alert exercise.
It wasn't the first time that women have used the banner of motherhood to protest political realities, but it had a very important resonance at a time when motherhood was so glorified. So when you start to have mothers protesting, it was very powerful.
But Operation Alert continued.
No matter how many times they studied panic, no matter how many times they tested a communication system, no matter how many times they set up a mass feeding exercise, there was no defense against the hydrogen bomb. Nevertheless, they continued to practice it in this kind of ritualized way, and even President Eisenhower would participate.
President Eisenhower leads the way in a test evacuation of the entire executive branch. The chief executive heads for a secret retreat, the first time the government has abandoned the capital since it was burned in the War of 1812.
We are here to determine whether or not the government is prepared in time of emergency to continue the functions of government. So there shall be no interruption in the business that must be carried on.
In private, Eisenhower admitted the exercise was futile.
Once the hydrogen weapon was available, you began to hear from him that any idea of nuclear war would be, as he said, an absurdity or a form of insanity. No longer was war an extension of policy by other means, but it was a form of mutual suicide.
The United States is piling up armaments which it well knows will never provide for its ultimate safety, the president told his advisors. We are piling up these armaments because we do not know what else to do to provide for our security.